So today is yoga for anxiety. Today's class, this week's theme, we're going to work with satya, truth, being true. And we're going to think about the fact that the principle of being true is a whole lot more than just trying to be truthful with your words and with your actions. So we're going to try and integrate that into our practice today. So we're starting on our feet so we can learn some stuff about ourselves. So wiggle your feet around. Start to feel your feet on the ground. Maybe move your feet side to side. Really feel your feet. Pick up your feet. Feel the muscles of your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice what is present. Take some wiggles on your feet. And then land feet comfortable about hip width. So where you would normally stand. Pick up your toes, drop them down nice and wide. Soften your knees, soften around your hips, bring your hands to prayer heart center. And then if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. If it's not comfortable to close your eyes, just soften your gaze looking at something just ahead of you downward. See if you can tune in to all the little micro adjustments that happen when we stand on our own 2 feet. Starting to really get to know what is present. And it's impossible to know what is present if we don't check in. So when we come to these pauses, when we come to the grounding part of our yoga practice, this is the time that it gives us to look within, notice what's present in the physical body, notice what's present energetically, emotionally. And then when we stand still, it's a wonderful time to get to know where the mind wants to run to. And then keeping your eyes closed, take a couple of really long, slow, deep breaths in and a soft sigh out of your mouth with a soft open in your mouth. So really small opening, just a soft sigh. And then because we focused on our breath, now take a check-in. When you started focusing on your breath, did you bring some more tension to your toes? Did you lock your knees? Did you bring a little more tension to the low back? Maybe the shoulders, maybe the face. Check in, do the body scan, getting to know what is present. And then we'll very gently and slowly move with our breath. If it's comfortable, keep your eyes closed. We're just going to inhale our arms overhead. And as we exhale, we're going to join our hands at prayer and pull our prayer down to our hearts. So inhale up. And exhale, pull your prayer down. Inhale like you're scooping in fresh life. And exhale, let that fresh life come all the way down to your heart. And you can stay with this simple movement, or if you'd like to start to build it up a little, we're going to start to reach up tall, tall, tall. And as we draw our hands down, sink your hips down a little bit to a baby chair. Inhale up. And exhale, baby chair. And then start to build on that. So maybe you want to start to peel your heels up and come to the balls of your feet as you rise, and then lower, baby chair. Starting to integrate your whole body. So using all the muscles nice and slow and even. And maybe you want to challenge yourself in your balance by keeping the heels lifted. Coming to your baby chair with heels lifted. And that's going to require you start to really focus in on those muscles in your legs, your stabilizer muscles, the ones on the insides and outsides of the legs. Notice our tendency to push our hips forward or to lock our knees when we come to the balls of our feet. And then sink it down to a baby chair, heels on the ground, and check in. So do your body scan again. What is present in the shoulders? Are you overly gripping with the toes? Notice the low back. If you have any tension in the low back, maybe think about the rib cage. See if the rib cage is splaying out a little. Maybe bring the rib cage in. Have a little adjustment. Check in on your own pose. Get to know what's present. And think about the truth of this pose. What is it that you might be looking for in this pose? Are you looking for some leg strength? Maybe challenge your legs a little more. Start finding your own truth of your own pose. And then we're going to inhale as we rise up back to mountain pose. We're going to challenge our balance with tree. We're going to think about the truth of poses. So for this tree, the intention for the pose is just going to be play with your balance. So begin to think about having strong left leg and bring the right heel up. Watch for the tendency for the hips to move over. You can keep your hands a prayer. You can hold on to your hips if you want to keep an eye on your hips. You're going to pull that right leg up. And you're going to pull it onto the left leg. And we're just working on balance. So maybe not pushing the foot into the leg into the foot. Maybe just reaching up nice and tall and being softer in our pose. Notice how this feels. Maybe feel the wobbles and go with them a little more. Maybe exaggerate your wobbles. Feel tree pose. When you lean over a little to the right, what happens? When you lean over a little to the left, what happens? Notice you begin to grip with your toes. Do you try to lock the knee? Notice what happens. Find the truth of your own body patterns. Breathe. And then slowly step out, lower the arms. And take some wiggles, some shifts. Change your pose, change your position. And connect to the breath. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. 2 more times. Same thing, other side. Just thinking about balance. The only thing we're thinking about for this pose this time. So start to bring the weight onto the right leg. Lift up the left. And plant it comfortably. You're just working on balance. We're not working on someone else's shape. We're not working on strength. So just lift tall and play with your balance. And if you're super balanced in your pose, super on your mat, and you're not falling all over the place, maybe today you want to play with closing your eyes. See how much more challenging it is to close your eyes and balance on one leg. Lift a little to the left and a little to the right. Play with your balance. Get to know your balance. Get to know what happens. And in particular, notice what happens to your balance when you stop keeping your mind in the pose. And then slowly bring it back, mountain pose. Take a little shuffle, a little adjustment. And then we're going to go into the same pose with a completely different intention. So this time, we're going to think about strength and balance at the same time. So not just balance. So bring a bend into both legs. Keep an eye on your hips. I like to hold them just so we know that they're not moving all over the place. Engage in as if you're trying to pull the hip bones in and reach tall through the spine. Lift the right leg. This time we're going to plant the right foot onto the shin and press it into the shin, and then press the shin back into the foot. So now you should start to feel the muscles of your legs. Holding the muscles of your legs, connecting with them being strong, now peel that right leg open. You're trying to find the inner muscles of the inner thigh. Peeling it open, holding strong, and then play with your balance. So thinking about keeping these leg muscles really, really, really strong and active. Notice how this is an entirely different pose with just some small, minor adjustments, mostly unintentional. Notice your breath when you try to balance. Notice your mind. Slowly lower the right leg. Adjust, feet, wiggle. And then onto the left side. So balancing right, lifting left. Bend in both legs. Start to be active and strong in the legs. Pull the left heel onto the shin. Press foot into shin, shin into foot. Nice strong legs. Pull the leg open. Pull the knee open with the muscles of the legs. Try to stay very, very, very strong. And then lifting your branches. Play with your balance. Slowly lower out, and this time connecting with our breath in mountain pose. Inhale up, exhale, prayer to heart. 3 times. And this time bring your prayer all the way down, straight down to the ground. Touch the earth and step back for a plank. Lower the knees, tabletop. So we'll move and breathe in our tabletop position. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale towards child's. Moving with your breath, inhale forward and exhale back. And thinking about how to be true to this movement. So this movement is about getting mind, body, breath connection. More of a meditation, a moving meditation than particular poses or muscle shapes. So start to have an experience in your own body, being true to your own body. What is present? What feels like it needs to be moved? What feels like it's holding? We come to these patterns so that we can start to notice what's present and different from day to day. And then slowly lower all the way down to crocodile pose. So one hand on top of the other, forehead down. Shimmy the hips and let go. We're going to try and notice what is present entirely through the back line. So begin by pressing the tops of your feet down into the ground. Fire up the backs of the legs, the front of the legs, the glutes. Notice what is present. And then let go. And then we're going to lift the shoulders. So have the hands for balance. Lift the shoulders. Fire up tops of the legs, backs of the legs, all of the back. Notice what is present. And then bring it down. And then we're going to move with our breath again, trying to fire up the muscles and have a movement meditation. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. Trying to fire up all of the muscles of the legs and all of the muscles of the back. And here is a wonderful opportunity to practice truth. So many, many, many practices have shapes of lifting up and getting this huge arch in your back. Can you practice the truth of lifting up and getting strong in the back rather than archy, but activating and strengthening the muscles of the back, lifting up, getting long, getting strong. And notice if you need that extra little pause at the end of your exhale, a little reset pause. And then bring it down. Crocodile pose. Shimmy the hips and loosen. Notice what is present. Notice where the mind goes when the body starts to warm. And then slowly back, child's pose. Connect to child's pose with your hands on the ground. Feel your hands on the ground. Maybe even wiggle them around, starting to really connect with your hands touching the ground. And then tuck the toes and slowly make your way up to a down dog shape, really connecting with your hands on the ground. So rather than leaning and landing in the hands, see if you can pull back from the hands. So lifting your weight away from your fingertips, away from your wrists. And then warming up your down dog shape in whatever way feels right. Bending the legs, swaying the hips, feeling some movement. And then holding a down dog with a soft bend in the knees, pulling the hips up out of the ground. Find your base. Connect with your head below your heart. We're going to slowly lift the right leg, trying not to move anything else. So lifting the right leg with everything else nice and solid and still. Hold. And then bend the right knee and take big circles with this right leg. So nice and slow, trying to keep everything else nice and still, just feeling the leg and the hip. And then heel to the ceiling, leg bent. We're going to pull the knee forward towards the right arm as we inhale, lengthen. Exhale as we pull it forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, pull forward. Go slow, feel your body. And here's an opportunity for you to check in to the truth of your practice. If you are buckling, if you are wiggling too much in your shoulders, bring this practice back down to your hands and knees, tabletop, and move from here, starting to build strength. Smaller. Inhale, lift. Exhale, pull toward that arm. Inhale, lift. Exhale, pull. And then step through for low lunge. Find your blocks if you have them. And we're going to move in our low lunge. So bending the knee, inhale, exhale, pull the leg towards straight. And again, we're trying to feel the muscles of our legs. So maybe you move your feet around, maybe you move your hips around, maybe you move your knees. Start to feel the truth of your own holding patterns, your own muscles of your legs, and not what you think the perfect shape should be. Trying to really have an experience in your legs. And then land on the right leg. So really strong low lunge, strong in the torso. We're going to start to peel the left heel towards the glute. So really slow, controlled movement. Come forward, peel the heel towards the glute, and lower back. So nice and slow and with control. Begin small. And really connect to pulling that heel. So resisting the movement. The left leg remains active and strong. See how slow and how many muscles you can find to connect with. And if you really want to begin to challenge yourself in your balance, you're going to lift those fingertips up and see if you can float on this right leg. And then lower back down, low lunge. Slowly lower the back knee. So lower the knee, untuck the toes. And in this pose, we're going to try and connect to this front hip flexor on the left side. So press the top of the left foot down first. Press it down, and then see if you can lift the left knee just a teeny bit. So you're starting to lift, press and lift, and activate that whole leg. So if I were just folding into this pose, I could fold in pretty far forward and not feel anything, no activation. I am trying to connect with this muscle. So I'm going to press the foot down into the ground and peel the knee just a teeny bit up. So you're starting to really connect with the muscles. If you like, you can start to lift the torso up, supporting if you are going to lift the knee at all. Keep support, have something to lift so that you're not entirely pulling through the knee until the front of the leg is strong enough. Breathe. Slowly lower, send the hips back. Start to peel up the toes of the right foot. So peeling up toes of right foot. Feel this, back of the leg. Move the foot. So press down, pull it back, feel the back of the leg, and mindful of the back. So keep this out of the back. Try and keep the hips even and all of the attention in the back of the leg. So being true to what we're working with. It might look pretty to fold your nose towards the knee, but it doesn't really achieve anything in the back of the leg. So be true to what we're working with, the back of the leg here. And then slowly come forward. We're going to place our hands down and send right knee back. Tabletop pose. And then back to down dog. Find your base. Feel your hands on the ground and your head pointing down towards the earth. Find a nice solid base and keeping everything still except the left leg. Slowly lift the left leg towards the ceiling. Bend the knee and take slow circles with the leg. Trying to keep everything else still and stay present in all the muscles of the leg and the hip. And then inhale, lift heel to the ceiling. Exhale to slowly peel the knee towards the left elbow. Inhale up. Exhale, pull forward. Notice if one side's easier than the other. Notice if you need to bring it down, your shoulders are tired. And then step through low lunge. So finding movement in your low lunge, inhaling forward, exhaling back. And then land in a nice, strong, low lunge. So not resting the torso on the front leg, being strong in the torso, strong in both legs. And then gently and slowly pull the heel towards the glute and back. Stay present in the legs. So watch for lots of movement in the hips. We want to stay strong in the legs. Feeling the back of the right leg. Feeling strong all the way to the glute on the left side. And then maybe even challenging our balance, lifting our fingers up, whew, paying attention. And then land, low lunge. Slowly lower the back knee, untuck the toes. And then find the position where you can connect to the front hip flexor on the right side. So press the top of the foot down, maybe peel up the knee just a little, maybe a little teeny tuck of the pelvis, help you connect to this space. So think about only this space, lifting through, feeling in the front of the hip. What can you feel? And then notice if you need an adjustment somewhere else, maybe the left ankle, left knee, left hip feels a little odd. Maybe you need to wiggle around. Breathe. And then slowly send the hips back towards the right foot. Left toes peel up. And move around. Feel the back of the left leg. Without compromising the lower back. Without pulling into the neck, feel just the back of the leg. And then slowly come forward. We're going to send left knee back to right. And find a child. So find a child that works for you. Maybe your knees are wide, maybe they're together. Maybe your hands are clasped, maybe they're touching the ground. Find the pose that feels like the right position for you right now. Pause in a pose to find our breath, to notice what's present, to notice what is changing. And to get to know where our mind goes whenever we slow. So when we give it less to focus on, what are our patterns? And then slowly make your way up to down dog. Lift the right leg high, and this time when we step through warrior 2 feet. So drop the back foot and lift up, warrior 2. And we're going to think about the truth of this pose. So warrior poses are strength poses. Start to feel muscles. This is me hanging out. I can hang out with no muscle control at all. This is me starting to find my muscles. So I'm pulling up with all of the muscles of the low leg. I'm trying to strengthen the thigh. I'm trying to pull the knee out. This leg, I have a tendency to turn the hips. So I'm going to imagine pulling this left leg around backwards, pressing the foot down into the ground, being super strong in the legs, and then finding strength in my torso.
Is your computer plugged in? Because that's the I'm gonna die noise.
Huh?
Is your computer plugged in? Because that's the I'm gonna die noise.
No, it's just I forgot to turn the sound off. Hold your warrior nice and strong. Be steady. And then we'll move and breathe. So inhale, reach arms up, straighten the legs. Exhale, pull down. So trying to connect with our muscles, moving and breathing. Inhale up, exhale, pull down. Begin with just inhale up, exhale down. And then see if you can slow the exhale and add a gentle pause. Inhale up, exhale even slower, little pause. And then hold your warrior two. Is it harder or easier to hold? Is it harder or easier for your mind to stay on your mat? Notice. Lower the back hand, flip the front palm, and reach up for reverse warrior. So really thinking about opening up right side body. Breathe. Watch for tension in the neck. Back to a warrior two. And we're going to go over to half moon. So half moon is a fun pose, a pretty pose, a pose for the ego. So we're going to look, if you have a block, place your block about 2 feet from your front foot. You're going to look at that block, you're going to push your right arm forward. So push the right arm forward, start to engage through the torso. And you're going to look at the block, pick up this back foot, little at a time, until you can pull it up. Maybe come down to the block. See if you can start to think about this block being just there for a little bit of support and balance. But the rest of your thoughts to be with lengthening. So lengthen that top leg. Lengthen top leg. Lengthen the torso. Strengthen through the core muscles, especially the obliques. Lengthen the arms. Reach, 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 reach.
I can't even stand today.
Half moon is a pose of expression and prettiness. So maybe you can change your hands. Maybe you can start to feel more dancery. Maybe you can bend the top leg and reach for it. Really challenge yourself here. And if you really want to be crazy, perhaps lifting up off the top fingers and balancing. Breathe. Feel the extension of this pose and come out of it nice and slow. So don't slingshot the foot like I did. Slowly bend the right knee, lower down, back to warrior two.
Fell out. I was gonna redo it, but then I fell out again.
We're gonna bring our hands to our hips. We're gonna turn our toes out, heels in. Take a little wiggle of the legs and notice left and right sides. We're actually just gonna switch our block because we're just gonna turn around. So take a second to notice left and right sides. And then we're gonna think about moving in that prettiness. So the ego layer, the prettiness expression layer. So we're gonna reach up, star pose, and pull down to goddess. But move your arms in more of a dancey flow. Reach up and breathe down, come down. Start to be more of a flow, an expression. Notice how this changes the movement, changes the feeling. And then reach up, slowly pull down to a super strong goddess. So now we're going to bring ourselves into a very, very muscular, strong, strong, strong controlled goddess. Notice how this feels entirely different. So now try and think about pulling your knees outward, pull, pull, pull with the muscles of your legs. Squeeze the glutes, squeeze all the muscles of the torso. Really, really, really strong. And rather than hanging out, see if you can be super strong in the muscles. Don't just hang out in the joints. Find the muscles of the legs. Notice how this feels entirely different than an expression pose. And then lift up just a little bit less strength in the legs. We're going to take our torso side to side. So moving from the rib cage side to side, a little bit of movement. Start soft. And then if anybody remembers, Walk Like an Egyptian, the song, start to make it more like an expression. A little cutesy, a little flowy. Notice how that feels different. See if you can do it with a smile. Kaylee, I can tell you're not smiling. And then reach up, back to star pose. Take a wiggle of the legs, let them go. And then we're going to turn out warrior two on the other side. So left foot that way. Left foot out, right foot back. Find your legs, find your strength. Adjust. So really take the time to feel the muscles of the legs. Notice your own patterns, find some strength. Wiggle around and find your base. Notice if you grip with the toes. Notice if you sink into the hips. See if you can find some strength in the legs. And reach really, really, really long. Warrior pose. Pose of strength. Find your breath. And then we'll move and breathe. So inhale, lengthen, hands touch overhead. Exhale, lower, pull down. So strong both ways. Inhale up. Exhale, pull. Begin with just simple breath. Inhale up, exhale down. And then see if you can add in that slower exhale. Gentle pause. And then hold your warrior two. Check in. So do a body scan right from the toes. Look at the toes, look at the knees, look at the ankles, the hips, the back, the shoulder. Can you feel the muscles of the face? Can you breathe? Can you keep the mind on the mat? Lower back hand, flip the front and lift up warrior two, reverse warrior. Lengthening left side. Breathe. Slowly back to warrior two. Hold. And then we're going to go to our expression pose. So a lot less about strength and a lot more about expressing and lengthening. Being pretty. Let's be pretty. So looking at your block, slowly coming forward. Pop up the back leg. Try to only balance on the block. And then get prettier, get longer. Feel an expression. So lengthen the legs. Lengthen the arms, lengthen the torso, and breathe. Maybe challenging yourself by bending the right leg and catching the foot. Maybe pulling up and coming off the block, balancing. Woo. Find your breath. If you have the foot, slowly release, not slingshot, and then slowly lower back down. Long, strong warrior two. And then toes out, heels in. Stars legs. Take a little wiggle of the legs. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, purr to heart. Hold here with the legs wide. And just think about half moon pose on either side. So was it easier to balance and find the pose on the second side because we already knew where we were kind of going? Or was it harder because perhaps you already knew where we were going and you didn't really want to do it? So these are the opportunities, these are the moments of truth in our practice, these moments that we check in and have an experience. So find these moments as much as you can, even when we're moving. What might I like to get out of this pose? And then we're going to forward fold here. So 2 ways you can take this pose. If you would prefer to work the back of the legs, your feet come in a little closer. If you want to work inner thighs, your feet are going to be wider. So find what works for you. And options for this pose, grab your block, come forward, just hang out. You can take this pose static and just hold. Or you can explore this pose, wiggle your feet, wiggle your hips, change your weight. Have your own experience. So what works for you? And breathe. Let go. Start to slow and breathe. Find your heart rate. Start to wind it down. See if you can take the tension out of your neck. Maybe even let your head come towards the ground. With your head towards the ground, maybe you can take soft movements of your chin left to right, as if shaking out gently whatever needs to fall out. Some of those constant thought patterns. Maybe we're ready to let go of the path that our thoughts like to take. Shake it up like it's one of those etch-a-sketches. We're going to start fresh. And then wherever you're at, turn your heels in a little. Using your block, we're going to slowly make our way down to yogi squat. So take some time. This is Kaylee's favorite pose. I always make sure I throw it in for her. Take your time, move down. And you can hold a static squat, or you can find an active squat. So once you get here, think about what we're trying to achieve. So there's lots of things that you can work on in a squat pose. This is me just hanging out. I have no muscle engagement. I can hang out here, but I'm kind of in my joints. I'm in my heels, I'm in my ankles, I'm in my knees, and I'm in my hips. If I want to actually build some strength and open hips, I'm going to lift up. So I'm going to move my feet a little wider. I'm going to lift up, and I'm going to focus on pulling my knees out, but feeling strong on either side of my hips. So front of hips, back of hips, everything active. My glutes are active. I'm going to lift up. And as I get strong and as I practice being strong in this, I'm going to actually hold my blocks so that I take some of the weight of my torso out of this and I can start to really feel it.
Yeah, I think I'm cool not doing it.
So Kaylee, being true to herself, says she wants a break and she's going to hang out where she's going to hang out. That's okay. There's no right or wrong. It's just being the truth of what you want to work with. So I want to get some strength here. I'm going to lift up. If you just want to hang out, you can. Just sit on the block, lift your heels forward, and just press arms into legs, legs into arms. That gives you a little opposing forces, and then you can just lift the torso and take a little meditative break. And then slowly come on down to a seat. Not quite done. Take the legs up. So about hip width, a little bit wider. Just feel the feet. So point and flex, pull the toes back, push the toes forward, feel the feet. And then we're going to lift, think about the tops of our thighs. So we're going to lift the right leg and hover it. Try not to demonstrate. Lift and hover. So lift and hold. Think about this. This is the truth of this pose. This is trying to get somewhere and use your back to do it. So think about top of the thigh, lift and hover. Notice how hard it is. And then notice how hard it is to keep it up even when your mind wants to let it go. And then give your mind something to do. Take your heel out and in, slow, out. And then notice it's easier. We're still using the same muscles, but it's easier if you get it moving. Bring it down, wiggle it out. And then lift and hover the left and watch for a compensation pattern. So watch for taking it all in the back. Lift and hover it, find the muscles. Find your breath, notice how hard it is. And then give the mind
regret showing you this.
Something to do.
I was the one that did this. I did this to
Right.
myself.
We did this in booty training too, though.
I know. No, we did?
Yeah.
I did this to myself. I showed you this.
Bring it down, wiggle it out. And then make your way to your back. So take your time coming down to your back. Find your hips on the ground. Land your feet on the ground with your knees up. And get to know what is present in your body when you start to land on the ground. So, check in on your hips. Sometimes we over tilt our hips and push our lower back into the ground. Sometimes we even, due to some tightness in the hip flexors or elsewhere, we pull our hips forward and over accentuate this lower curve. So just check in, start to wiggle, start to soften, start to notice what is in and around the hips and the low back. And then feel the shoulders. Notice if they feel like they're lifted up off the ground. See if you can start to think about the shoulder blades on the back and where they're hitting the ground. So feel that part of your shoulder, not the top in the corner, the part in the middle of your back. And see if you can think about that bone getting heavier and heavier and heavier and kind of resting into the muscles of the back. And then we're going to think about the muscles across the front of the shoulders. So bring your hands palms up with elbows bent. So get nice and comfortable in the arms. And then see if you can think about pulling the right tip of the shoulder, so the top corner of the right shoulder, pull it all the way in without moving the arm towards the nose. So in towards center. Pull that shoulder in. Accentuate what you feel is already happening when your shoulders are tense. So pull it forward and round and round and round. Start to really connect with those muscles. Try to keep the arms soft. We're just trying to feel the top of the shoulder and the chest. Squeeze it forward. Squeeze it like you're trying to be really, really rounded and hunched. And then take a deep breath in and see if you can just let everything in that right shoulder go. Notice if that right shoulder seems a little bit closer to the ground. And also notice if you're frustrated that it's not different. So that's another thing to learn too, is that our holding patterns can take a long time to change in a lot of patients. So one exercise is not necessarily going to be the magic cure. We need a lot of patience for ourselves. So start to connect with the left side, left arm soft. Think about the very top corner of the left shoulder. And then think about drawing it in towards the nose, in towards midline. Pull, pull, pull. See if you can find the muscles that make that rounded, hunched shape. Pull as tight as you can. Try to notice any other place when you pull tension here. So maybe you're gritting in the jaw. Maybe there's some tension in the neck. Maybe there's some tension in the face. Notice anywhere else. Maybe even the low back. Check, check, check. Feel, have an experience. Pull tight. Pull as tight as you can, and then take a deep breath in. And with the exhale, see if you can just drop that left shoulder entirely to the ground. Notice what is present. Notice your breath. Notice how you feel. And then take your feet up to the ceiling, just experiencing feet above our heart. So a little bend in the legs, nice and soft, not too much tension. Move the feet around. Just try and feel feet lifted, defying gravity. Start to really feel the feet, the toes, the ankles. Maybe take circles, maybe pedal the legs. See what feels like the movement that you need to finish your practice with. And bring your knees in towards your chest. Wrap yourself up in a little ball. And happy baby. So the truth of happy baby can just be a soft, rolling, happy baby pose. Happy, joyful pose. It can also be a strengthening, so you can reach for your shins or the outer edges of your feet and press your feet into your hands into feet, posing forces. And feel some muscle engagement, just starting to feel the hips and the legs. You can move here. You can keep it static. Start to feel like different ways you can take each pose. Different truths of each pose. Different feelings, different responses. And the knees back in, hug. And we're going to take a somatic reset. So trying to loosen and soften the body. Feet go down onto the ground, heels down, but not fully straight. You want a little soft bend in the knee, just so you have lots of movement in the leg. The point of this pose is to get as much wiggle throughout the entire body as possible. So land again. Try and get the shoulders soft on the ground. Try not to have the backs of the knees pressing into the ground. And then we're going to flick our toes. We're going to pull them back towards the shins and toss them away from us, flicking back and forth. So trying to get wiggle throughout the entire body. And really notice what wiggles and what doesn't. When we try to soften and take these somatic movements, it's a wonderful time for us to start to be attentive to where we might have holding patterns. So maybe one hip feels more free than the other, one knee feels more free than the other, one shoulder, one elbow. Maybe we can soften our hands a little more. Maybe we seem to be gripping in between the shoulders and the movement isn't coming all the way to the head. Notice, 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 wiggle and soften. And then take a really deep, slow breath in, and with the exhale, soften and sigh and land. So check in. This landing, this sudden landing, can give us insight to our body. Notice feet and knees and ankles. Notice any part that seems to be tingling or gripping or talking to us. Our awareness is pulled there for some reason or another. And then we're moving into our resting pose. So if this is the perfect pose for you, don't move. You can hold this position. If you need to adjust for your resting pose, please adjust. Find the pose where you can be at rest. So all of your muscles are starting to really soften and loosen. And many of us come to yoga for so many different reasons. So as you're starting to do this body scan, looking in at your muscles, starting with the physical layer of the body, checking in, looking for places that might be still gripping, sending your awareness there and thinking softness. So we all come to yoga for many different reasons, and none of them are right or wrong. Whatever brings us here is the right reason for us in that moment. So many come for the physical practice. Maybe you just want to feel stronger. Maybe you just want to feel a little more flexible. You want to be able to tie your shoes with ease. These are all valid reasons. Every reason to come to your mat is a valid reason. There are no invalid reasons. So if the truth for us was that we came for a physical practice, we came for a certain physical reason, think about what that reason was. Think about why that reason was for you, what that reason was for you. And think about perhaps you're changing, you're growing towards that goal, you're noticing. And then expand your possibility, your thought, to the reason why you keep coming back. Maybe the truth of your returning to practice is a little bit more than your original reason. Maybe not. And then we'll talk about our inner truth, our inner wisdom. So, in the teachings of yoga, we break up the human experience into layers. It's just an easier way to look at the human experience. We're not really divided black and white into certain things, just the way as we're not like just bones and just muscles. We're like a whole system that works together. But we break it up into 5 parts, so it makes it a little bit easier for us to have a system for thinking about it. It's just like a stepping stone. It's just a way of processing information for us. So our innermost layer is our truth layer. Our essence, in some spiritual teachings, we call this part our soul, our spirit, the peace inside of us that has that magical feeling, that magical part of us, that part that feels like that's our life. And that's not our thoughts. And that's not this physical body. There's something in the middle, underneath, deep within, that ties all of this experience together, all of the emotions and the thoughts and everything. There's something right in the center, and that's our essence. This is called the bliss layer in the teachings. It's also the part that we refer to. The light in me sees and honors the light in you. This is the bliss, this part in me sees and honors the bliss in you, because we know that we both have it, and that on some level we are the same. We're made of the same stuff. This is also the part that tells us when we're being true to ourselves. So on those days where we find ourselves traveling down these treacherous paths of thoughts, caught up in what we should have or should not have done, he's running over in our thoughts. This is our truest layer, our essential part of ourselves, our nature, sending disruptions to all the other layers, trying to get us back on the path where we probably would be more comfortable. So I don't like to say right or wrong. It does feel like we're back in line. We're back on the path that just feels, it hums right for us. And the only way that we can get to know what that truest part of ourselves, what this bliss layer is of ourselves, is to lay and be still and peel back all the other layers and really try to connect within. So laying here, noticing when the thoughts are pulling you away and drawing inward. Noticing when physical distractions are drawing you away and draw inward. And for some people, it helps to think of this inward place as being somewhere in the center of the chest, pulling down towards the sound of your own heartbeat. For some people, it's easier to think of a visual. So think of something that brings you great bliss, has an experience of bliss for you. The eyes of a puppy or a beautiful sunset, something visual, that you have that intense whole human experience. You feel it in your body. Bring that to mind, feel the sensation, and then draw into that sensation. Allow it to expand throughout your body. And then notice when the thoughts pull you away, and gently repeat over and over and over. Just as when we wobbled and fell out a tree, when we wobble and let our mind pull us away, we just start over. Bring it back. It's here in our truest layer, our essential self, our bliss layer. This is the part of us that remains unchanged by the thoughts, unchanged by the experiences, unchanged by trying to pass ourselves through negative and positive, right and wrong, good and bad. And then if you have the time to take, practicing laying here, drawing in towards your bliss layer, and practicing coming back, coming back, coming back. Please take all the time that you need, switch us off, take some time. If you need to finish up at the 60-minute mark, you're going to begin to bring small wiggles to your fingers and your toes. And start to feel the physical body. So really start to notice what is present. Maybe trusting in that body intuition. Take a sudden stretch. So take a lengthening, a stretch, a wiggle that your body feels like it might need right now. Notice any creaks and cracks and trust in that inner wisdom. And then roll on over to a side on a fetal position, whatever side is calling to you. Curling up in a ball and thinking about being wrapped in a ball, a protective ball. And thinking about difficult thoughts, constant thoughts, thoughts that trouble us. And rather than sweeping away the thoughts or battling with the thoughts, controlling the thoughts, think about the thoughts having pathways in our brain. And as you're laying here in this little protective bubble, imagine that the pathways could be swept clear. It's not that the thoughts no longer exist, and it's not that our experiences no longer exist. It's that maybe we're going to walk a new path. Try something else. And let go of the holding patterns that are keeping us in these same patterns. Maybe being able to let go of some of the tension around our familiar pathways. Maybe it's tension we imagine in our brain. Maybe it's tension we imagine in our physical body. But imagine letting some of this go. Give some kind of visual experience to this. Maybe you just see colors falling from your head. Maybe you feel muscular tension falling to the ground. And then connect with the concept of coming up to a seated position nice and slow and feeling a little bit lighter. Maybe your head feels a little bit lighter on your spine. Maybe your shoulders feel a little bit lighter. And then come to a seat, hands at prayer at heart space. And connect to the idea of bringing your left and right sides to meet in front of your heart, accepting yourself as whole and complete, precisely as you are. Send a little gratitude inward to your inner wisdom for bringing you to practice. And then from this place of gratitude inside, send it out. Maybe to someone in need or just outward in general to your community. Imagine sending out from this heart space, maybe even repeating the words, "The light in me sees and honors the light in you." Thank you so much for joining us.